try to be pretty complete in doing this program. So when I'm going through, I don't know, a roster issue, a depth chart thing, line combinations, I like to make sure that I'm crossing all the T's and dotting the I's. So why do I keep forgetting that Anthony Beauvillier exists? Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Beauvillier spent some time on a conference call yesterday with the Pittsburgh media, and he spoke in impassioned tones about his background in Sorel-Tracy, which is the really small double village up in the north of Quebec that I visited back when the Penguins drafted Marc-Andre Fleury, who's also from there. He's from the Sorel part. And it is, as you can imagine, a place that, lives, eats, sleeps, and breathes hockey. Beauvillier's no flower in terms of his achievements, but he's been in the league for a while. He had 21 goals for the Islanders in the 2017-18 season. Always seemed to be a little bit better than he actually was when he was playing the Penguins, but maybe that's because all of the Islanders always seem to be that way against Pittsburgh. And a year and a half ago, the Islanders traded him out, and he ended up bouncing to 3 different teams this past season and didn't perform particularly well for any of them. Canucks, Blackhawks, and then the Predators. And so he goes out into the free agency pool this summer, and he ends up getting 1 year at $1.25 million, which is not all that far above the NHL's minimum wage, to come here and to come into an uncertain role and to come to a place where the guy who's doing a show called Daily Shot of Penguins can't even remember that you're a thing. So like when I'm laying out all these, third line combinations, Lars Eller's going to be out there with Jesse Puljujärvi and Valtteri Puustinen, and I'll name like everybody under the sun down to Jonathan Gruden, and I'll leave out Beauvillier. But that's what his stature is. That's what happens to you when you have a year like that and you bounce around like that. You have a hard time overcoming the very real perception everywhere that, 3 different teams said no. And if you count the Islanders, it's 4. This is what Beauvillier had to say on that subject yesterday.
It was obviously not an easy season for me, especially mentally. It was tough just to get used to different systems, get used to different dressing rooms and different guys, and just getting to know the cities and getting comfortable everywhere wasn't easy. But I feel like I've learned a lot last season just to obviously get comfortable with different groups, and obviously looking for more stability now. And I feel like joining the Penguins is it's going to be good for me.
Let me tell you first what I like about him. He's got speed, and as such, he's visible because he combines that speed with energy. When he was at his best on the island, he was creating a lot off the rush. He was forcing the defenseman to push back. And, every once in a while, he would do something that was pretty impressive offensively. When you saw him, it was the offense that you'd see. It wouldn't be anything else. So when Kyle Dubas spoke recently of Beauvillier being not just willing, but actually bringing it up with Penguins management and the coaching staff that he'd like to become a more well-rounded player, that includes starting in the defensive zone. That means penalty killing. It means the whole thing, because that's actually, that's kind of what has to happen when you're on a third and fourth line. And if you don't expand or grow your repertoire, then you're stuck battling for top 6 positions on 32 teams. And those aren't easy if you're only scoring 12, 13, 14 goals. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season. From Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So in essence, he wants to reinvent himself 3 years shy of being 30 years old. And that's a hill to climb. It's been done. It's been done by a lot of people, actually, but it's not ever done easily. And I'm not going to lie. I have no idea what they have right now. I have no idea what they have in this individual. And maybe the one thing that would concern me the most is that where he fit the best was with a team that's so very different from the Penguins, meaning the Islanders, of course, the Brock Nelson, Anders Lee, Cal Clutterbuck, Matt Martin, Casey Cizikas. I'm just giving you cringies just by mentioning these guys' names, but they, to their credit, established a real culture in Uniondale in terms of how tough they would be to play against on a consistent basis. Some of that was Barry Trotz, but I really give the players themselves the most credit for that because they sustained it through different coaches. If you're a player who's got energy the way Beauvillier does, you can kind of hide some of the grit things by being alongside players like that, if that makes sense to you. That won't happen here. That won't happen here. He will not be surrounded or swarmed by grit in this roster. I'm being nice. So when Beauvillier gets to camp, is reminded of his role, is assigned to whether it's Kevin Hayes or Lars Eller as his center, and given something of a roadmap, it's going to be all on him. It just is. It's going to be all on him. But in the interim, I'll at least do him a solid and try to remember that he's here. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Ed, who says, DK, here's some summertime fun, maybe, mostly for younger fans or those newer to the NHL. Sidney Crosby is an icon, an obvious all-time hockey great. For those who didn't have the opportunity to watch Mario Lemieux, especially in his prime, give a thumbnail, please, of how big the gap is between him and Sid. I'd be violating my own personal rule, Ed, if I did this. And my personal rule is that I don't compare anyone to Mario. However, given the way you phrased this, when you're talking about the gap, I won't do it between him and Sid. I'm going to do it between him and humans, people who are mortal. And it's a big gap. Mario could do everything better than everyone else. When it comes to offense, when it comes to the individual breakdowns of the skills, when it's shooting a certain way, whether it's for accuracy or power or deception or doing it on the fly, beating someone with a move. If you go back to, and I'm sure some of you who are listening to this program today will, all the way to 1987 in the Canada Cup, when Mario was, for the first time really in his NHL career, surrounded by world-class talent on Team Canada, playing against what was then the Soviet Union. And he's out there with, his line mates. The whole thing was just, it was almost hilarious, the level of talent on both sides, really, because most of those Russians had yet to come over. So they were this mysterious group of how good are they really kind of players. And then when they got here, you went, whoa, okay, so they are really good because they're skating right with these dudes. It was at this tournament that really, for the first time, Mario was put into a position where he had to score goals, where he was needed is too strong a term, but it was the best thing that he could do for that particular group. And that applied in the double when he was placed on a line with Wayne Gretzky. In fact, it was Gretzky who told him, you need to be shooting. You shoot better than me. You do the scoring. Gretzky actually remarked just recently on that specific thing. Well, it doesn't take someone young or old. It just takes a hockey fan who's familiar with their history through whatever form to know how that ended. The pass by 99 to 66 in the slot, and boom. If needed or wanted, Mario could be and was, as Viktor Tikhonov, the Soviet coach, famously spoke after that series, the greatest goal scorer I've ever seen. Which is funny because even in Pittsburgh, we didn't think of him that way until then. And now it was like, oh, geez, he's the best at this too? But he was the best passer. He had the best vision. He had the best one-on-one moves, not just against goaltenders, but against defensemen. He had the best read of opponents. He had the best sense for how to pick apart a penalty-killing box. In fact, he would make the box move where he wanted it to move so that the rest of his teammates... You probably think I sound ridiculous saying this stuff, except to anybody who saw him. You know, that's the gap. I can't even, comment on it without sounding insane. But then, if I go on top of that and point out that in the 1992 Stanley Cup playoffs, no less an authority than William Scott Bowman, the most celebrated coach in hockey history, said that Mario had the capability of being the best defensive forward he'd ever seen. Because when the Penguins needed to protect a lead, whether it was against those Blackhawks or against somebody else, he was the one who was sent out there. He was sent out there to kill penalties because he was the best penalty killer when you would have the luxury of being able to put him over the boards for those. And then you throw into, even way on top of that, the captaincy, the leadership, the championship mentality. And all of that was just in the first phase of his career. He, of course, returns in his mid-30s and scores at will by doing completely different things, reinvented himself into a bad-angle gunner, a sniper, a maestro who'd stand off to the side for the most part, especially on power plays, and just conduct the orchestra. He is the greatest player in hockey history. He is the greatest athlete in our city's history. I'm not about to weigh that versus anybody, but I do appreciate, Ed, that you got any answer out of me at all here. You can tell that it's not easy for me. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who listens to Daily Shot of Penguins, and we will be back with another one of these on Monday.